Krug is present. Kessler.
Here.
Gopel.
Here.
Tucker.
Present.
You have a full board.
Thanks, Bob. I'd like to note for the record that Township Attorney Jack Belzer, our Operations Manager Tom Broker, our Zoning Administrator Mike Deem, and our Fire Chief Ryan Volz are also present. Additionally, the following Township officials are also present via Zoom, and I do see Julia, our Assessor Julia Wilson, and our Township Engineers Alan and Melissa Lawrence. Tom, will you detail the procedures for those attending tonight via Zoom?
Yes, to members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded to be shown on public access television, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meetings are also posted on the Fenton Area Community Television YouTube channel. For those attending via Zoom, we ask that you keep your microphone muted until we reach the portions of the meeting where public comment is allowed, at which time further instruction will be given. For tonight's meeting, there are no public hearings. All public comment will be accepted near the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download on the Township's website at www.fentontownship.org.
Thanks, Tom. All right, moving on to the first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Krug votes yes. Kotrick.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, agenda stands approved as presented. The next business in order is the meeting minutes. Included in the packet are the minutes from the October 18th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or requested revisions to these meeting minutes? Hearing none, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Moving on to the next business in order is expenditures. Are there any questions from the board regarding any of the invoices? Okay. Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $165,283.70 for payment.
So moved. Support.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Again, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Reed.
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Kotrick.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thanks, Bob. Moving on to the next business in order, which is public hearings. Tonight we have none. Next business order is reports. Are there any committee reports to be made to the board this evening? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to communications. None. The next business in order is adoption of ordinances. We have two tonight. First is proposed littering ordinance. This is the second reading and the vote on the adoption. This is the second reading for the proposed littering ordinance, which was introduced at our October 18th meeting. Just a note that the word written was added to section 3. Was it 3.0, Tom?
Section 3.
Section 3. All right. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Yes, Kate.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I've made my opinion on the using a lettering ban to ban newspapers, I think, sort of clear earlier when this was first brought up. I don't support that, but if I do, I think this is still a bad way to go about it. So I guess first I had reached out to the Flint Journal after the concerns were expressed, and I got in contact with members of their distribution team. I gave those members contact information to Treasurer Tucker. They seemed, I mean, I only met with them once. I don't know if you tried to reach out to them afterwards, but they seemed very accommodating. So I don't know that an ordinance needs to be adopted at all. But if one does, I mean, this ordinance literally, it's banning any leaving of paper without written consent on anyone's property. That would include things like campaign literature. It would include, I don't know, if I got mail delivered that was unsolicited to someone, it came to the wrong mailbox, I wanted to go give it to them, I put it on their porch. It would include just 1,000 different things. I don't know, if a small business, I don't know, like our lawn mower guy, we found him because he left papers on our porch. He went through the neighborhood, put papers on the porch, saying what his rates were. There's 100, 200 misdemeanors for him, punishable by up to 90 days in jail with $500 of a fine. I'm sure we wouldn't actually enforce it that way, but I don't think under enforcing an ordinance is a good reason to pass one. And, you know, I mean, also if we under enforce it, then there's concerns about arbitrariness in enforcing it. If we just enforce it against the Flint Journal, then there's gonna be concerns related to that. So I don't know. I'll be voting no on it. If we do pass it, I guess we might as well fix in part B of the ordinance. It says littering means any of the following. That should be litter means any of the following. Anyways, yeah, I oppose the ordinance.
Okay.
I think I'd like to say, I mean, Cade, you weren't here last time. We had an interesting story to tell the board about how these things are distributed. Because I just, out of happenstance, got behind one of these vehicles when it was doing its thing. So, I won't go back through that all here, but let's just say they weren't, the object of the game was to get them out of the car, not get them to people. So, I understand what you're saying. I'm not terribly worried about the constitutionality of the ordinance because it is not content regulating. I don't care if you're a politician, a lawn guy, or the Flint Journal, or John Tucker. If you're leaving papers out in the township without people asking you to do that, I don't think that's cool. It creates a lot of problem from a just waste standpoint. The only other thing that I want to say is I did mention last time I had failed to invite the inspiration for the ordinance of the gentleman that had requested this, and he'd certainly be in a much better position to tell you his experiences about what this results in. Mr. Shantz is in the audience today. I did invite him for the second reading, and I did try and reserve a spot for him to talk on the matter. So if you'd be kind enough, I'd like to appreciate it if you give him the time to talk at some point.
I can do that. Any other board members that would like to comment? I would like to hear from the board.
I see Keith's point. Again, I don't think this is a police action, right? Where this is a complaint. If you have a complaint, we have a means to rectify the situation. I don't think the kid that comes up and says, pick up your leaf thing that's stuck in my door, that's not really the spirit of this, I assume. This is more of a, like the guy's, he'll never be, if we employed him, he'd never be unemployed because he's walking every day out there. And he's in the same spot, 3 weeks later, and he's still filling up bags. So I see your point, and it's a good point. But I don't think we're gonna be going after the little guy that's, the 16-year-old kid that's trying to make a buck mowing lawn. I don't think that's where we're at with this ordinance.
Do you want me to speak?
Not yet, just let me finish
That's
with
all,
board
that's all.
comment.
Yeah, that's just my
Christine?
point.
I agree with the spirit of that, but Cade has a point that you could get some annoyed neighbor who, what if that one neighbor does call in that 16-year-old kid and say, you have this ordinance, I want you to go take care of it. This kid left something on my porch, he's not allowed to.
I think Jack's gonna determine whether that's.
Yeah, then we have to address
I think Jack's
it.
gonna determine whether that's worth pursuing or not.
Well, and I think there's a big difference between sticking something in my door
I
or
agree.
laying it on my porch versus throwing it from the car as I drive by.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's a huge difference between that. And we could reflect that in the ordinance if we wanted to. It'd be, I mean, we didn't. We banned paper being left anywhere on the property. I don't see why we wrote it this way. I tried to reach out to Jack's office. Didn't hear back. But
I didn't get a call.
I called. I left a message with your secretary.
Sorry.
But anyways, I think it just seems obvious to me that we could draft a more narrow ordinance that would still stop the Flint Journal from throwing papers just out the window willy-nilly of a car. I think, they offered, to me, they said they do have provisions in their contract with the subcontractors who distribute the papers. They said we could move it back. They could either alter those contracts to say they had to, put the papers further onto people's properties, or enforce existing contracts if their contractors aren't doing a good job. They said they'd be willing to make, and this was over a month ago before I reached out and gave their information to Mr. Tucker. But they also said, they'd be willing to establish like the complaint line through the township in addition to these papers are already, they're only supposed to be delivered to people who want them. There's an opt-out like on the like promotional paper. I know that doesn't really address that doesn't address concerns of someone who's not having them delivered to his house, the opt-out, unless he wanted to go, through the neighborhood and ask people to opt out. But anyways, I don't see why we couldn't just get it done with negotiation with the Flint Journal, before, inviting a lawsuit. I think you told us we're gonna get sued if we do this. And if it's not the Flint Journal, I don't know, maybe the Flint Journal's resource starved right now. I don't think so. They got bought by MLive. But if it's not the Flint Journal who sues us, it's gonna be some political campaign sometime when we either enforce this or don't enforce this. When there's like campaign literature distributed, or it could be 1,000 things because it's an incredibly broad ordinance.
Well, here, I do understand your points, but to me, I truly believe that that's what the U.S. Postal Service and UPS and everything else is there for. I mean, if you're running a campaign, you should be using the U.S. Postal Service to mail out your campaign literature. When you knock on someone's door, you can offer them. I know, I've done it, not on thousands of doors.
Yes.
You leave them literature.
I've done
but
it
unsolicited, why should we give somebody an advantage just to be able to come out if there's 17 people that want to mow lawns and they just leave 17 pieces of literature on your front door? I mean, there has to be a balance. And to me, that's
Yeah, I guess I agree.
when you
So
start a
I-
business, one of the things you do is you take a look at your business and you go, okay, I'm gonna have to budget this much for this and this much for postage, this much for marketing, and that's what I do. And nowadays, especially with social media and everything else, I think we have to look at.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, I guess that's a little bit different argument. Then you're saying that you do think we should ban paper being left on anyone's door, but we don't think we're just targeting this at the Flint Journal. Then you're saying
No, but I think
Okay.
that if you're gonna leave something at my front door, then knock on my door.
So then, if my neighbor, I don't know, my kids, I have my neighbors start up a lawn mowing business and they leave papers at all the doors, they don't check the law, they're committing 50 misdemeanors in my neighborhood. If those papers get left out for 3 days before everyone picks them up, it's 150 misdemeanors.
Yeah, but
I mean, I'm not saying we're gonna enforce it this way, I'm saying it's
Yeah.
stupid to draft a law that we know we're gonna not enforce.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that, because if those same kids take their advertising material and put it in your mailbox,
They're committing a different crime.
they've committed a federal offense. I don't think they're going to jail for that. They do it every year. I get them regularly, so it's prosecutorial discretion. I can call and say, I saw Christine speeding down the road, I want her ticketed. She does it every day that ends in Y, the prosecutor.
Well, you caught her, huh?
I just still let the sheriff see me.
He can't catch you, he's been trying. But, that's the point. Everything we do is with reason. It's broadly construed because it is designed to be broad. It doesn't matter what kind of junk you're leaving around to get sprayed into our environment. You're leaving junk around to be sprayed into our environment. And at the end of the day, it comes down to money, and they're choosing to be cheap rather than worry about our environment. That's really what it boils down to.
I don't consider paper left on my doorstep damage to my, I don't pick it up, I put it in the burn pile. Like, it's not,
You don't pick it up, he picks it up.
Yeah, they don't
That's
put it
the
in the
problem.
doorstep.
well, if they don't put it in the doorstep, then we can tailor it to not being put in the doorstep. If the concern is we're driving behind the Flint Journal and the Flint Journal just tosses these promotional copies out their door, they're not anywhere near the door, then I would think you'd just tailor it, hey, things have to be set on the porch. I mean, you don't have, like, it's not like the choices are, I'm not sure I'd support it even then. I might still think that it is, bad for, it's too far in the balance, but like, I mean, it's not like we have to go straight to no paper can ever be left. I mean, I don't know, my mom has an arrangement with the guy who takes care of our lawn, who I guess, I'm not sure, maybe he was doing something unethical when he handed out, promotional papers, or maybe, I don't know, maybe he'll research now in the future. He has an oral agreement with my mom where he leaves the bill under a rock, like maybe I should be saying this. He leaves the bill under a rock, on our porch. Unfortunately, that's an oral agreement, so he's still committing a misdemeanor. I mean, I get that we're not gonna enforce it, I don't really understand why we're gonna make laws that we aren't gonna enforce.
So if you're a business and you do that practice, and it happens, okay?
Yeah.
You have people sign contracts that say, I'm gonna pay $67.50 every time I mow your lawn. All you gotta do is put something in there that says, I hereby consent that you leave la la la, and the problem is solved.
I guess
not that hard.
I don't know if they have any written contract, they might.
And then your mom could say, no, I don't want you to do that, cause it makes a mess down the road.
Well, my mom's already agreed to it, and I guess I don't know if they have any written agreement. Maybe we need to put everything in writing nowadays. Maybe that's the goal of the township, to make people put things in writing.
Easy, it's a proof question. You know, it gets around the issue of somebody just saying, well, if I'm confident with that, no, they told me I could do that. How do you prove it? So,
With the Flint Journal is
prove
gonna
it in
say every single person on the route orally told them that they could do it, and that seems like, I mean, they'd be laughed out of court.
well, but if they wanna sell you a subscription to whatever it is that they wanna distribute to you, have you sign off on it. They can solve that problem.
I mean,
Okay, look at it, this is, it's intentionally vague, so, you know, we have a noise ordinance and a, disorderly persons ordinance, that's pretty vague too. And it gives the lawyers some leeway to determine, the spirit of what's going on. I think what John's trying to say is that if we're gonna see these people throwing this stuff out, at least with this law, we're gonna have an actual ordinance that we can give Jack so he can pursue it, because, you know, just saying the Journal, you know, if they're getting paid to drop these things up in cul-de-sacs, I've seen that many times where there's just a ton of phone books left in cul-de-sacs because they're getting paid to get them out of their car, not necessarily knock on everybody's door. And I think with this, just telling somebody the Flint Journal, or I don't even know why we're crucifying the Flint Journal.
Well, that was just
but
the
but I mean,
motivation.
you know, if they're still getting paid to take them out, and the Journal says, hey, be a little more cognizant of where you're putting these things, I don't necessarily see that is going to be a, discouraging the previous action, whereas at least now we have something finite that we can pursue. And it's not much, it's 500. I doubt every, you know, we're not, these aren't gonna be consecutive terms that I think you're,
Well, that's
you
what it
know.
says. I mean, it says
Well,
each, here, let me read this.
I understand that, but my point is, you know, I don't know any judge, I don't know any prosecutor, I don't know any township attorney that's going to individually go after each one of these instances.
Okay, so then, I mean, we don't need to write any.
But that's why we
violations.
leave it intentionally vague, so we have just something to address this issue. Again, we're not a police state here, we're not going to go out looking for these. Now, Mark might have a different opinion of this, but we're not gonna go and, you know, well, I've got this little, I got it the other day, it's stuck in my door, it's a, I don't know, slip of paper that big, says, you know, snow removal
Yeah,
or
I
something.
mean,
I just,
we can remove.
you're worried about the worst case scenario.
We don't
whereas
have to
this
write
is at
into
least-
we don't have to write into the ordinance, each day that a violation shall continue under this ordinance can constitute a separate offense, as well as separate violations on the same date shall constitute separate offenses.
But I think
mean-
that's for if we tell somebody to go pick up their stuff and they don't do it, that's how we have that
Well,
remedy
I mean,
for
keep
that.
the day thing on, and don't keep each violation shall be a separate, I mean, if the Flint Journal doesn't pay any attention to this, they send a contractor, the contractor has no idea what's going on, he maybe does their normal thing of throwing out papers, we want him to commit 500 misdemeanors, I just don't, like, it seems incredibly over the top, I don't get it.
And I understand also, but again, I think Trustee Gopel said it, we have a noise ordinance. Probably 99% of all lawnmowers that are still running by a combustion engine are probably too loud. I know my neighbor's leaf blower is 100 times too loud.
Yeah, and we don't.
But we have to have an ordinance if it becomes a nuisance to be able to stop
I
it.
guess-
So we can water it way down, in my opinion, I think I'd almost want it a little, yeah, like, and it's vague enough to the point where if it does become a problem, we can do something about it.
Is there any way Jack or John or, Cade, an area where we can insert the clause of materials delivered by a moving vehicle?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I would think you'd write, is like materials delivered by a
I
moving vehicle.
don't know, you guys are the,
Person doesn't get out, they're not set a certain distance. from
yeah,
the road.
that takes care of the guy that's politicking or trying to cut lawns, that puts it on your porch or door, or,
Well, let me say a couple things.
Yeah.
One, that is a mistake there where it says littering, it should be litter, but, yeah, you could do that, however, that doesn't address the phone book situation. And then you're starting to narrow this down to a very small, circumstance, and it's not just the Flint Journal, I mean, there's a lot of,
I
material
mean,
just gets
I'm
thrown
not
out.
picking on the Flint Journal, I would
Well,
just.
right, and so it's not just a question of a moving vehicle, what if it's just somebody walking down the street throwing these papers? And,
Well, he's gonna, I would hope, hit the yard.
well, maybe.
Yeah, I
not.
understand now that you mention it, Jack.
And then, the other part about the violation thing, with all due respect, that's pretty much how every ordinance is written, whether I do it or somebody else does it. And if you look at most ordinances or laws, that's a pretty common language there. Doesn't mean you could go into, well, you could go into court, but a judge would chase you out of there. If they deliver like 50 newspapers and you write them 50 tickets, the judge would throw you out of there, and it's a practical matter. If there were 50 tickets, everybody'd be all happy to just resolve it with one ticket. So, it's the practicality of all this, so we're talking a lot of theoretical things here. As a practical matter, this ordinance isn't overly burdensome to anybody except somebody who wants to just throw stuff out.
Yeah, just, I guess one last thing, if we're talking as a practical matter, I mean, these ordinances get passed, if they get sued, they almost invariably settle. The reason they settle is because there's no way these laws are constitutional. So they settle, townships don't wanna go through or townships, cities, whatever, don't wanna go through the legal fight, neither does the Flint Journal. They settle, the Flint Journal agrees to something like, people can opt out of delivery of the papers, you get a cooperative Flint Journal, which they already seem to be, and then that's what happens. It's not, I don't see how, like, the practical thing is we're gonna waste a bunch of money writing a ordinance that isn't very narrowly drafted, it's broad, applies to banning all paper from the township, we're gonna get sued, then once we're sued, we're gonna waste some more money, then we're gonna settle right back in the spot we already are in. I don't see how that's practical.
Well, part of the problem, and I don't mean to have a debate here, but part of the problem is, this is geared for the residents, not the Flint Journal. And so the residents should not have a burden of having to do anything to say, don't throw this stuff on my property. If the Flint Journal wants to do something, they can go up, knock at the door, say, do you want us to drop these off in your driveway or your porch or whatever? But this protects the residents, it's not to pick on the Flint Journal or anybody else, but it's something the residents want. And there's a benefit to the residents. They can still deliver it, they just can't willy-nilly throw it out there. I mean, it's what you wanna motivate this towards the residents or the newspapers.
I don't know, I mean, I'm a resident, I don't wanna have to sign permission for someone to deliver something to my doorstep, like a bid on my roofing contract, maybe I need to, we'll need to like staple up a bunch of pieces of paper saying, hey, anyone has blanket permission to deliver stuff to our doorstep because the townships decided to pass a stupid ordinance. I guess, I mean, like, I'm not saying you can't write your way around it, if you want to. I mean, I would think like oral agreements should be fine. But if we decide to put in the word that it has to be written, I get that it's easier to prove it if it's written. It still seems like we're just violating we're making a bunch of conduct that's normal, illegal. But,
Okay, this isn't gonna stop anybody
support.
from doing this. This is gonna give us a remedy to, if somebody has a complaint about it, we have an actual tangible thing we can pursue with them. your mom's still gonna get her bill under a rock. You know, nobody's gonna come in here and ask for a copy of this and.
Yeah, unless she's, I don't know, angry at them because she thinks they charged her the wrong amount or something. And then you've got angry constituent.
Okay, you're looking at the worst case scenario of everything.
Because it happens.
It's
That's what you draft ordinances around. You don't draft ordinances around, hey, everyone's gonna love each other all the time.
you know, we have these ordinances now that are written to give people protections, if they so desire. Like Ben said, 99% of the lawnmowers are we're not going after these people for that. But if somebody is sitting there running their car at 2 in the morning, working on their garage, and you've asked them a couple times to do something about it, and they don't, now we have an avenue to pursue this. That's all, at least in my opinion, that's all we're doing.
We could write the
Again,
ordinance
you know,
that way, but we didn't.
I've worked with having discretion my entire career, and I think that's what this is too. You know,
Yeah.
we're gonna have discretion for this.
It's definitely really broad discretion.
It is, intentionally.
All right, I'm gonna stop the board discussion. Mark?
You want me to stand here? Or?
No, would you please come up to the podium, state your name and your address, please. Adjust the mic if you need it. It looks like you're tall enough, you'll be just fine.
I'll be good. I've done this before.
So I'm Mark Shantz. The address is 4144 Lakes. This actually is something I've been thinking about for probably the last 4 years. And I don't want to get into all the stuff that I do. John knows, but I don't think it's germane to the conversation. My thought all along was, why does any newspaper that very few, if any, residents really want, because it's not really a newspaper, it's nothing but ads, why not have an automatic opt-out? Meaning all residents uniformly opt out. Now, if the residents want the paper, that's fine. They opt in, then they get the newspaper delivered. So that's number one. Number two, I've actually gone on social media multiple times, Nextdoor being the most predominant, and have mentioned the way to stop the newspaper and getting, 15, 20 comments and thank you and the phone number to call. So that has been done, and there are sections like where I live, 4 Lakes, they don't deliver anymore because we got enough residents to stop them. The problem that the MLive has, and it's not just a Fluent Journal, it's an MLive problem in general, they have no control of the subcontractor who delivers the paper. I will give you with 100% assurances that I found not hundreds, but thousands of papers in empty lots, in wood lots, in ditches. People drive over them, they don't pick them up. So in essence, you are forcing residents, some of them who are elderly, bending over, picking up a soggy, wet mess once a week and discarding of it. Or they just drive all over it. And then just the plastic breaks up, the paper breaks up, and plastic it may decompose and not completely. So it just adds to the litter that is Fenton Township. Linden has the same problem. The city of Fenton at the same time. Where I moved to Fenton from Rochester and Oakland Township, they didn't allow it. They had an ordinance to stop it because it's nothing but a mess. Passing this ordinance, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but I would think if you took a vote of the populace, you get about 99% would be approval of it. No one likes this. I've talked to literally hundreds of people because I'm the goofy old man out there who's picking up the litter in the streets. So I talked to a lot of residents, and this thing irritates the heck out of, every resident I've ever spoken to. They just want to stop it. So I tell them how to do it. But then the logical conversation is, why doesn't the township pass an ordinance just to disallow it? And if I want the paper, I ask for it. So that's, in essence, that was the gestation of the idea. I personally have spoken to MLive multiple times. I've spoken to the manager who actually manages the people who deliver the paper. And their issue is they said, Mark, we literally don't have much control over it. And when they throw those papers, guess what? Nobody follows up from MLive to see where they were discarded. So there is no, I hear what you're saying. We're going to do better now, even though we've been telling residents for 3 or 4 years, we're going to clean up our act. It doesn't happen. So you have a question?
Yeah, well, I guess, would you object to a more narrowly tailored ordinance that stops the Flint Journal from discarding these papers?
I don't,
Doesn't stop
Well, again, number one, I don't get a vote.
No, I'm not like asking for you to vote, I'm just.
Well,
asking
again,
if-
the gestation of this was, yes, was the Flint Journal. It is the primary source on a weekly basis. You can, at least on Ralston Road, you can bet by 10 o'clock Saturday morning on the north side of Ralston, there's papers everywhere. And sometime you can go with me, I'll show you where they are in the ditches, where they're in the woodlots. I mean, they were a soggy mess. This was happening for years. And yeah, I did bug John about this for a while, saying this, it's just a litter source. And the objective is, this is a beautiful, beautiful township. We have beautiful lakes, good people. Why just mess it up with a bunch of garbage? We just cheapen the city. We cheapen all of our property values. It's just, to me, it's an easy fix that the vast majority of the residents will be very supportive of.
Mark,
Yes.
Is there another question?
I'm sorry.
Mark, I was just gonna say, I appreciate you coming up and giving us your thoughts.
Thanks.
Is there any other board discussion?
I just wanna make one statement. We're not doing this as an ordinance against MLive or the Journal or paper XYZ. We pinpointed on those, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, we've set them up if they wanna sue us.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about a specific source. It could be an unknown person that throws them out the door. So I just
Like the phone book.
like to.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bob. I mean, as Mark said, it's the genesis of the notion. The notion applies to whoever's throwing trash in the.
That's right.
That's a good point.
No, thank you.
All right.
Have we had any other complaints from people not about the Flint Journal? About other things, I'm just asking? Or is this the only complaint, the only person who's been asking for this sort of ordinance? The only source of, have we had people complain about phone
To be
books?
honest with you, I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
If the front desk receives a lot of calls on complaints from litter being
Or like
left on their
other
front
than
porch.
vendors, so like
Um,
phone books?
To be honest with you, I never looked at this as a Flint Journal, because there is no Flint Journal, it's MLive.
Okay,
So, I mean, I
understand.
never
Just the
looked at
name of
this
the paper.
at all as an ordinance against MLive. I looked at it as a general ordinance of just
Well,
littering.
Litter.
I looked at it
Yeah,
as a
that's all
specific
it is.
complaint about papers that we unnecessarily wrote ordinance, banning all paper for, but,
Gage, you brought up some great points.
All right,
I
yeah.
appreciate that. That's why we have a great board. We really do. All right, I need a motion to adopt the littering ordinance as presented.
With the
With-
correction
Yeah,
of
B needs to be
to be,
edit.
it should be
Litter-
stated
litter.
litter instead of littering.
All right,
I will move the motion.
second.
all right. The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Any further discussion? Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Patrick,
no.
Kessler,
Yes.
Krug votes yes, Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, moving on. Next, under adoption of ordinances, proposed zoning ordinance amendment. This is on fuel tanks. This is the second reading and vote on adoption. Again, this is the second reading for a proposed zoning ordinance amendment to add design standards for fuel tanks, which was introduced in our October 18th meeting. Would want to note that the suggested revisions from both our Township Attorney Belzer and Mr. Tucker have been incorporated into the final version. Mike?
Well, I think you pretty much covered it. You know, the addition to the ordinance is basically clarification for agricultural use. As long as they're compliant with GAMPs, they'd be exempt, right? It's clear now. Came out with the public comment from last time. That's the only change to this. We're putting reasonable restrictions that are similar to what the state would put on for larger tanks, just on the smaller tanks requiring special use permit, so we have more control over it. Planning Commission is asking that you, recommending that you approve the ordinance.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions from the board? Comments? All right, hearing none, I need a motion to adopt an amendment of Article 11 of zoning ordinance number 594 to add design standards for fuel tanks as presented.
So moved.
Support.
It's been Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Gobel?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Petra?
Yes.
Cruz votes yes. Reed?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Bob. All right, moving on, the next business is unfinished business. I'd like to schedule a special meeting I'd like to get it as early as possible prior to our next meeting of November 15th. I have proposed 4 choices: Wednesday the 3rd at 6 p.m., Thursday the 4th at 6 p.m., Monday the 8th at 6 p.m., or Tuesday the 9th at 6 p.m. Anybody can throw anything else out there, but I thought I'd at least start out with 4.
I'm good with all of them.
Yep, I can make them all.
My opinion, the sooner the better, so if we could do Thursday the 4th, Wednesday the 3rd.
Well, if we have to, do we have time to
I cannot
post
do
it?
Thursday the 4th. I can do the other 2.
18 hours.
I can do the
Okay,
3rd
so
or
if
the
you
9th.
have to do it right away.
We'd have to post it. If it's Wednesday, we're
It's
fine.
when,
If it was tomorrow, I'd have to post it before
Yeah.
11 tonight. It'd still be okay, but,
okay,
18 hours, right?
okay, that's,
It's 18 hours.
just checking.
You can't do,
Cannot do Thursday.
can't
Can't
do
do
the 4th.
Thursday either, you can do Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday or Thursday.
Can't do
Can't do
Wednesday or
either.
Thursday. What about next, Monday the 8th? Anybody can't do that?
I'm gonna be out of town.
Oh, you're out, you're gone,
Oh,
right?
I'm gone.
Okay.
Forever?
So you can't do anything.
Forever. Working out of town this week, so.
Yeah, you better let
So wait a
Tracy-
minute, did we try Wednesday the 3rd?
I think,
I think just Rob.
Rob
yeah.
couldn't do it.
I'm the only one who can't do it.
There's no other date that works, right?
Oh, no, I just threw out 4.
I mean, I can do Friday.
Can you conference,
Morning.
Rob?
Yeah.
Can we conference with
Yeah.
you?
I mean, I can Zoom in and stuff, but I'm just gonna be out of town.
He wouldn't be there, but he could still, you know.
On Friday?
He could still participate.
Actually, I can do Wednesday or Thursday if I can Zoom in. I can do Wednesday. It's just I'm gonna be working 2.5 hours away, so I'm not gonna make a trip up here.
No, don't blame me.
Okay.
Let's do it Wednesday,
Okay.
man,
Yeah,
get it done.
Wednesday.
Get it done, let him zoom in.
Grab a plate.
It's a workshop
Wednesday's
anyway,
good?
or
Can we
a
all,
special
can we all
meeting.
do a workshop?
Yeah, we can't do anything. I mean,
Well-
It's a special meeting,
Oh, a special meeting, okay.
yes.
All right.
No, you have to come.
Isn't that another name for a workshop?
I'd appreciate, no.
checking.
I'd like everyone that can make it, make it.
What time?
Yeah.
6 o'clock? Does that make it good? 6 o'clock? Everybody can make it except Rob. Rob, you're going to
I
Zoom.
can Zoom in, yep.
All right, we will set that special meeting
3rd?
for Wednesday, the 3rd at 6 p.m. Tom, you're gonna need to post that before we leave tonight.
well, we can do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, we can do it
just
tomorrow?
it at
Oh,
time
yeah.
tomorrow.
If it was gonna be tomorrow, we'd have to do it tonight.
Right.
And because it's a special meeting, you have to have an agenda.
Right. We'll post it with the agenda.
We'll post it with, yep.
Would you be so kind as to send us the calendar?
I can do that.
That'd be awesome.
All right, so we're all set with that date? All right, next business order is new business, proposed ambulance service agreement, MedStar Inc. We have our Fire Chief Bolts here tonight. It's gonna come up and he'll review and,
So in reference to the meeting we had a few weeks ago, we pretty much filled everybody in with our concerns and with pretty much what avenue we want to take with the protection of our residents of the township, with medical service provided by an agreement with MedStar, doing all of our transports for the township. A lot of you had a lot of questions that we discussed. I think we've got everybody's answers that they needed. I involved Kobe coming tonight. If there was any additional questions you guys had, ambulance problem we have in the county right now. And I think this is gonna be our first step to making this work out right and getting the county on board with us to move forward and make it a better service for our residents. So with your guys' signing the agreement, I think it's our first step forward in protecting our residents.
Chief, so what I'm hearing from you is that you are highly recommending that this board sign this document so we can, for the safety of our residents, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Does the board have any questions at all?
Yeah.
Yes?
This
Okay.
is just like a minor point. So we changed since the workshop, we changed the opt-out language a little bit, and we wrote, it had to be deposited in the United States mail instead of States mail, or, I don't think that's right. I think we've got an error in the termination clause, so like grammatical error, spelling error.
I didn't catch that.
17?
Yeah, 15,
15.
termination. But anyways, it is that termination clause that makes me extremely comfortable with this. If we wanted to, if it didn't work out, we could get out in 90 days.
Yeah,
So,
missing the S, United States mail. Yeah, that wasn't anything we changed, that was just, I think
okay,
that was there
already
originally.
there.
Yeah,
I knew
but-
we were trying to get that language perfect in the termination
Well,
clause.
the bottom stuff after the addresses is the new stuff.
Okay.
Um,
I have one thing I'd like to bring up in this. Under Article 7 about liability, the specific language there, what it talks about is MedStar having insurance, which is great, Township being a named insured, but the language states the Township will be indemnified from claims arising out of MedStar's performance of services under this agreement. Because you're now blocking out other services in large measure, I would suggest that language say that MedStar will protect the township from any and all liability as a result of any terms of this agreement, by any actions under this agreement. Because what may happen, I've talked to a couple people at 911, when you do this, the first calls are gonna go out to MedStar. And if there's some other ambulance sitting there, but MedStar gets the call, and the other ambulance is there, then somebody gets picked up by somebody else or whatever. Just a broader protection for the township. The township has no liability as a result of this agreement, none. I mean, there's no reason why you should have any liability because of what goes on under this agreement. So specifically, Article 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, line down, will defend and indemnify township from liability or claims arising out of MedStar's performance of services. It should just defend and indemnify the township from any and all liability as a result of this agreement, period. Not just what MedStar does or doesn't do, but all liability as a result of this agreement.
So just omit MedStar's performances of services under, and then we'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, you should have no liability because you're doing this and trusting all this and really, there's no reason for you to accept any liability. And some of these claims, I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, but a claim could easily exceed, millions and millions and millions of dollars. I mean, it's just,
They have a
ask
$10
a
million
car insurance.
policy.
Yeah, well, talk to a car insurance company and see how much they pay for some of these people.
John?
Yeah, no, I agree with him. What he's talking about is picking up liability, let's say a competing ambulance service says you can't do that and sues the township. That would come under the revised, he's just broadening it out. And I agree. And at the end of the day, we don't control the distribution of those ambulances. That's gonna be a county 911 thing. Maybe they'll call MedStar, maybe they'll call the one sitting there closest with its transponder on. I don't know, I can't control that. But I agree with what Jack said, yes.
Colby, would you mind coming to the podium?
The only concern that I would have from the comments is.
Can you come up to the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
I've never been told somebody couldn't hear me. The only concern I would have from the comments is that one of the other agencies decided that, or all of the other agencies decided this was a quick way to sue MedStar by suing the township because you adopted this contract, and if we've taken any and all liability from the contract, they can sue you just because you signed it. And if I understand what you said, that would put the defense of that suit just in the action of signing the contract, that would put us on the hook for your defense just because you chose to have a contracted provider. And that's not too far out of the stretch from the realm of possibility.
Well, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but the practicality of it is if they wanted to come after you, you're gonna be named as a defendant. So you're fighting this fight anyway. The only time it would really be germane is if they decide to sue just the township and not sue MedStar. Hypothetically, it could happen, but the practicality of it is that's not the way it's gonna go. They're gonna say you're unfairly competitive, you're interfering with their contracts, you're doing all these business tortsy sort of things, you're a bad boy. So all that what Jack's suggesting is gonna require you to do is whoever you use for that kind of thing is gonna be saying, I represent MedStar and Fenton Township. Because we just turn it over to you guys to defend. That's the practicality of it.
Yeah, and I'd assume if they're, you know, I don't know, particularly clever and they wanna come after MedStar, if we don't have this sort of language in the agreement, they'd sue townships make, you know, we aren't willing to maybe handle a huge amount of liability because we don't have, you know, we're just a township. And so they could sue us and then no one would be willing to enter these agreements. And sort of use us as we're an easier probably target, I would think, than MedStar.
So I would have to take I'm only the welcoming screen at our legal team, so I would have to take this back to our attorney Russ and have him run through the suggested feedback. And I think I understand the intent, so I think I can represent, but if you've got draft wording that you want to stick in there, I'm happy to take it back to him.
I can write something up and send it over.
Sure, and I'm sure he's quick, but by and large, everything else, you know, with the exception of liability.
Just a question for John or Jack, if I may. Since this agreement would be similar to what other municipalities have done, would they still have I know, you know, you can't predict the future, but, I mean, the potential liability, or do you think you see this as a lawsuit so they can get some money, kind of a go-away type of nuisance? Because I don't other municipalities are doing this exact thing. And the municipalities that we have concerns about have done this. So where is the potential for us to be on the hook litigation-wise versus another municipality that has done this years ago?
No different.
No different. So I don't expect this to give rise to that kind of litigation. Jack is just pointing out the possibility that it could, and if it did, it shouldn't be on our dime to have to defend it.
Okay. And I think we don't want to, you know, if they sue another township for it.
No, I'm just trying to put everybody at ease that this is kind of the status quo now. And it's you know, anybody theoretically can be sued for anything. I understand that. And that's kind of where you're at with this, correct? It's not like you see a glaring fault with this contract that's going to.
No.
Okay.
But the potential's there, and we shouldn't be on the hook for that.
Yeah, I understand that.
How many municipalities, Colby, have signed this agreement with this same section 7?
Throughout our service area or just here in Genesee?
Throughout your service area.
If I had to guess the number of communities that we serve under contract, it's 22, 25.
So 22 to 25
Standard
municipalities
contract.
have signed it, and their legal teams felt that the language was adequate?
I have to say that none of our other service areas operate the way that Genesee County does. So the oddities of this current system exist only here,
How
but
many contracts do you have in Genesee County?
the village of, I can say them out loud and you can count, the
Please,
village of Gaines Township, Forest Township, Davison Township, Richfield Township, the city of Davison, Atlas Township, the village of Goodrich, the city of Burton, and Mundy Township is in the process of releasing an RFP for the same issue. And I believe that there are at least one other townships that are waiting for the 911 authority to recognize the dispatch system, and then they will engage as well. So a few here in Genesee for sure.
Chief, can I ask you a question? We've been talking about this since February, and I understand the legal. Third lawyer?
I passed the bar, but I'm not sworn in.
Okay.
That's next week.
Congrats.
No wonder he's been
So I have to look to these three attorneys to my left, but at the same time, you have told me that you feel that this is in the best interest of our township and the safety of our residents. So as I sit here as a supervisor, my most important concern, as I understand litigation, is the safety of our residents. And you're telling me that sometimes we've been at 13, 14, 15 minutes?
22 minutes.
22 minutes, so I'm having a heart
On
attack
critical
here.
tier 1 medicals.
Tier 1
22
medicals.
minutes.
So, I guess all I would say is, and it's because I've had boots on the ground and been listening to, you know, our chief. We had a special meeting for it. I worry. I mean, I don't want it on me that someone's gonna, you know, there's a fatality when we could have maybe passed this evening and worked out the legal tomorrow. You know,
I
one
believe
death is too
we've been
many
in
for me.
we've been in critical status, I think, since 5 o'clock this evening.
Right, so
So
one
it's ongoing.
fatality to me is one too many, and I'm sorry. I agree, and I will agree with you, Jack, but I'm sorry, I wanna pass this tonight. And you know what, if we have to change that language, Colby, if you can get with your attorney tomorrow and get the language back here tomorrow, I know you're not in a position to change this, but I also, I worry when the chief comes into me day after day after day and telling me we're in critical status and we're 22 minutes away from having.
Yeah, but we don't even need language. We just need to delete MedStar's performance services under.
But he's telling me he can't make that change.
No, I know that, but I
Okay.
mean, we don't have to tinker around with language. By 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, his legal will, you know, be in a position to tell him yay or nay. I mean, it's not.
So we can pass it tonight then with what?
Contingent on
The fact that MedStar will agree to
Well,
these
we
6 words.
pass it in that fashion,
We
and they
pass it,
can,
and
they can
decide to
agree or
sign
not
it or
agree.
not.
If they, if legal says no, then we come back at the next meeting and we, you know, talk about the issue some more, decide whether we wanna go.
But if they agree, it could be done tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Kate, you or John, why don't you make the motion? So it's verb,
But maybe?
go right ahead, Kate.
Gotta
Gotta get some practice.
I'll move the motion, contingent on us taking out, removing, in the 4th line of Article 7's indemnity clause, removing MedStar's performance of services under, just those 5 words. I'll move the motion.
Second.
All right, the motion's been moved and seconded. All right, is there any further discussion?
Well, I think, we've gotta pass it. We just let every citizen know if an ambulance doesn't get there, sue us. So let's
I think that's
do
our,
this.
I think that's our
It's
job.
the right thing.
It's the right thing to do for our residents.
That's right.
And it's been the chief's recommendation. He's been working hard on this for a long time. I've looked at every aspect of MedStar. I think they're a strong financial company, and I think they'll do a great job for the township. So motion's been moved and seconded. Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Definitely. Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Kotrick.
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another great board. Next under new business is the award of a contract for private road snow removal services. Operation Manager Broker, will you please explain?
Yes, we solicited proposals for the handful of private roads that are maintained under special assessment district. This is probably the 4th time we've gone out for proposals since the county stopped doing them about a decade ago. We received 2 proposals. There's a copy of the original RFP notice in the packet. We got a proposal from Shoemaker Services and from All-in-One Lawn Care. And based on our estimated volumes of 12 snow removals and 6 ice controls per winter. Shoemaker Services has the lower cost, and so I'm recommending we do award the contract to them. There is a proposed agreement in the packet. At the suggestion of Attorney Belzer, I did send it to our insurance agent. He emailed back, said, I've made a couple minor changes to your liability language that I would recommend you consider, but he forgot to attach it, so I'm still waiting for that. So my suggestion, my recommendation is to award the contract, approve the agreement subject to minor revision to the liability language as requested by our insurance company.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, I need a motion to approve.
I just wanted to, sorry.
I'm sorry. No, not a problem.
I don't think this one's particularly close, but I would like, and I think I mentioned this on one of like the earlier proposals. I'd like to have information when we get these about the median wage paid by the companies, especially when they're local companies. I mean, this one, I think they're both local companies and the bids are pretty far apart. But if they're close, I'd just like to know, like, you know, what are they paying to, you know, people in the community. So I'd like, if we could in the future, like, just ask for the median wage.
Talking breakdown of what each resident's gonna end up paying for
Oh,
them?
no, of what they're paying their workers.
Their staff.
I think that's inappropriate for us to ask for that.
I'm not sure, would they be obligated to share that information?
No, I can't think they would.
I mean, they'd be obligated if they wanted a proposal. I don't know.
Okay.
What's your angle, Kate?
Well, I mean, if they're employing, like, if, I don't know, I care if they're local, for one thing, and then if they're employing a bunch of local workers at a high wage, I see that as like an independent good thing that we should know about. And if they're, you know, not, I think, I see that as, you know, I don't think it's gonna determine what we do in every case. I mean, I think in this case, they're probably more than far enough apart, that like the decision's obvious, but if we were torn between two competing close bids, I would think that it'd be of interest, you know, I think we pay attention to whether or not they're local. I'd also like to know what they're paying their workers.
Well, both of them are local.
Yeah, I know. In this
Okay.
case, both are local and the bids are far apart, so I'm not saying it's decisive in this. I don't think it is.
Is that in reference to every
Yeah,
bid we bid out, or
yeah,
just snow removal?
I'd
So you
mentioned
want,
it on
like,
previous proposals. There wasn't any objection then, but I guess there's now.
Shut up.
I know that public companies are required to disclose that type of information, but.
Private companies are
I
not.
don't think you require private companies. I understand what you're saying, that it's incentive that if they really want to do the job. I don't know, would we feel comfortable asking that in every instance, or? Or would it be when something comes back and is presented to us, we would come back to Tom and say, hey, can we get this additional piece?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, maybe I just mentioned it to Tom, I'm pretty sure earlier we had like, when we were hiring cleaning service, I mentioned this, and I thought it was unobjectionable then, so I guess I didn't think anyone had any objection to it, I just thought it'd be an extra piece of information that, you know, I don't know, I would like to know.
I don't think we're objecting, I think we're just having a conversation about it, because
Okay,
what if you ask three companies to bid, and two of them give you that information and one doesn't, are you gonna throw them out? Are you gonna throw out their bid? I mean,
Well, I mean, yeah, we could do it either way, right? We could make it like a mandatory thing that we ask them to include, or an optional. I don't.
Kate, only thing I'd say to that, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but as a business owner, I mean, you would have to be so specific. So if I owned a snow removal company, and employment is like what it is today. So I just happen to have right now on staff 3 new hires that I'm paying $20 an hour.
Yeah, well, I mean.
Am I gonna report those to you, or am I gonna report the 3 that are making $62,000 an hour that's worked for me for 20 years? So,
$2,000
or, oh, yeah, $62,000 a year.
I want a
So
job.
we would have to be so specific and sharing that
Well, that's why I said
data with
median,
you.
but.
Would you ask for the mean, the median? I mean,
I said median because I wouldn't get thrown off by that kind of thing. We talked about it before. I said median before, because I thought it wouldn't get thrown off by those
Well,
those factors.
why don't we do, we can maybe add that to an agenda to a special meeting, we can
Yeah,
certainly
yeah,
discuss
okay.
it. Not-
If it's something we wanna talk about in more detail now, I thought it was something we'd just list, like, hey, can you give us more information if they didn't? I honestly was thinking it was an optional thing, if they didn't give it and you just went no, and we'd make our decision with the information we have anyway. Yeah, I guess, I wasn't thinking of it as like a major imposition on the business. We could also do it, I guess, with like, give us a range, you know, just some, or give us some information about your wage, just like a, hey, we care about this a little, you know, maybe.
So how do we audit that information?
We just include it in the report that we get when we see whether or not we're, like, company provided median wage of blah, 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 or company didn't, or company gave a range, pay range, like, I don't think we need like a, I guess, I'm not sure why it needs to be, what did you mean by that? I guess, how do we audit it?
Validated, is what it's saying. Is that what you're, auditing means validating?
Yeah, just,
numbers, right?
how do we validate that? Not only that, but if I know that the contract could be contingent on what I pay my employees, I mean.
Yeah, as a contractor, I'd be totally against it, I wouldn't even bid it.
I wouldn't even bid it.
Well, I mean, you could just.
I wouldn't
So you're gonna
even
limit
I
your
would say,
bidding, not only
yeah,
that,
yeah.
I don't
I wouldn't
think-
even waste the time of bidding something like that.
You could just.
If that was asked.
Wouldn't you just not write down the wage number? I don't understand why you wouldn't bid it.
Well, there's so many problems with that, Kate, and the one I see right now is, say you got 3 people, and the lowest bid doesn't give you your wages, but the highest bid does. Now, does that factor in your decision to go with a higher bid, because you know they're making, I guess.
I mean,
There's a
looked
lot
up-
of what ifs there, and I just.
I looked up like both of these companies when we were thinking about which one we're gonna pick, just as a matter of course, I looked to see if I could find any information
but
about
that's
them.
really
And that
subjective,
weighed
I
in,
mean-
yeah, I mean, it's subjective, but I'm saying a ton of different things weigh in. And one of the things that I thought we could just ask people to volunteer information about if they wanted to, was wage, but I get that I've upset some members of the board today. I can see why it's more contentious than it
Not at
was
all.
at the beginning of the term.
Not at all.
No.
All right, well, we've got a couple of
I
special
mean, I actually
meetings
thought
coming.
I'd already asked, I think the board and Tom had said he'd include it, and then it just didn't get included. Maybe I'm misremembering. Do you remember? Did I have?
I don't recall.
Tom,
I
did
don't
we have
recall
this
it either.
I don't recall it
conversation?
either, yeah,
No.
maybe with Tom.
Do you remember something? I'm pretty sure it's
I
about the
think I
cleaning.
remember you bringing it up maybe after a meeting once, and
And you said you'd do it.
I,
It wouldn't be a problem, I think.
I may, if I
That's
did,
what
I
I remember.
apologize, I completely
Yeah,
forgot.
yeah, I'm not, okay, yeah, I thought it was just something, anyways. I'm not trying to make a fuss about this, we can talk about it another time.
Kate, you're not upsetting anybody.
No.
All right,
We'd only be upset if you didn't say it.
there you go. All right, so I need a motion to approve the private road snow removal services agreement with Shoemaker Services as amended. And what was,
Subject to, revision of the liability language as recommended by the insurance company.
There you go.
Motion.
I'll support.
all right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Kessler,
Yes.
Krug votes yes, Reed,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Cotrick,
Yes,
I'm sorry,
yes,
thank you, Tucker,
Yes.
Gopal.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is resolution number 2021-36, federal procurement micro purchase threshold certification proposed policy. And the second one is the procurement standards for federal awards. Operations Manager Broker, will you please review?
Yes, in a meeting with our auditors a couple months ago, they reminded us or emphasized how important it was that we made sure we had a procurement policy in place that complied with the federal regulations for spending the ARPA funds, which, by the way, we got our 50% last week, so it's in the bank. And so I went through the regulations, we drafted up the procurement standards policy, and then part of that policy is what's referred to as the micro purchase threshold, under which you don't have to do the formal bids. And you're allowed to the default is 10,000, you can do up to 50 if you could self-certify that you're a low-risk auditee, which our auditors agreed that we were. So That's why there's two documents. One is to first self-certify our micro purchase threshold at 50,000 under, for procurements under a federal award or sub-award. And then the actual procurement standards for federal awards, policy statements, which mirrors the federal regulations. The auditors have looked them over, said they are good to go as is, puts us in the position, so as long as we follow them, we have no issues when we have what's referred to as a single audit. When we spend over a certain threshold of federal funds, then there's an extra, we get an extra bonus audit come springtime.
Thanks, Tom. Any questions from the board? All right, resolution number 2021-36. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Yes, resolution 2021-36 determines that the township meets the qualifications as a low-risk auditee in accordance with the criteria in CFR 200.520. Self-certifies a micro purchase threshold of $50,000 for procurement under the federal award. I'll present the resolution.
The only thing I'd say is you said CFR 200/520, I think you meant to say 320.
320.
So I would just suggest we amend that in that regard.
Okay.
And I will support the amended motion.
But it says, okay.
No, well, there's two different things in there. The low-risk auditee standards are 200.520. So they're referenced in the resolution. But the procurement standards are the 300 range.
Okay, so he's okay the way he is then?
Yeah, it is correct.
Okay, all right. I withdraw my comment.
But you are going to still second
The original.
the original. Is there any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded. There's no further discussion. Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Oh, I sure will. Lorraine.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Gopal.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right. Next, we need to move on to, I need a motion to adopt the procurement standards for federal awards policy as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Patrick.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Gopal.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, finally, under new business, we have PA 152, Compliance Health Insurance Cost, Selection of 2022 Compliance Method. Operations Manager Broker, will you review?
Yes, this is an exercise we go through every year since 2011. PA 152 of 2011 places limits on how much public employers pay toward employee health care. So there are three options to comply with PA 152. The default option is not paying more than the prescribed hard caps established by the state each year. Those hard caps are set forth in the memo for single, two-person, and family coverage. The second option is a flat 80-20 cost-sharing arrangement where the employer pays no more than 80% of the cost. Third option is to opt out of the requirement altogether. A two-thirds majority of the vote of the board is required to choose either 80-20 or to opt out. For every year up to this point, the Township Board has selected 80-20 cost sharing, but these approvals are each effective just for 1 year, and the board needs to review this decision annually. I am recommending again this year that the board adopt the 80-20 option for 2022. I think the flat percentage is the most equitable approach, makes it more adaptable if we change, and in the example I provided the board, because the actual insurance is based on the employees and their dependents' ages, whereas the hard cap does not take that into consideration, the hard cap approach is widely unfair. 80-20 has been very fair. Us older employees like myself are still paying more than the younger ones, but at least we're all paying the same percentage of the actual cost.
Thanks, Tom. Are there any questions from the board?
And has
Comments?
Tom had any feedback from employees on it?
I'm sure the ones that would pay 0 would love to go hard cap, but the
Yeah.
ones that would pay triple the amount would
Okay, I was
probably.
just wondering if there's any like
would
actual
probably-
feedback from individual people, not,
No, the employees, they're used to 80/20.
no
they're
complaints, happy with
80/20.
80/20.
They're happy with it, yes.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none, I need a motion to continue the optional 80/20 rule for the 2022 to comply with the publicly funded Health Insurance Contribution Act, Public Act 152 of 2011.
So moved.
Support.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Reed,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Contract,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is resolution number 2021-37, Street Improvement Special Assessment District, Golden Shores. Operations Manager, will you please review?
Yes, we were approached, I've been approached a couple of times the last few years about a special assessment to repave the streets in the Golden Shores subdivision or condominium development. Specifically Golden Shores Drive, Golden Circle, Golden Court. The first time, I think whatever someone tried fizzled. This time, a woman by the name of Vicky Tucker took the bull by the horns, walked door to door, and got almost 70% of the people to sign a petition for a special assessment district to repave their streets. So, and if it wasn't for a couple of single people that had one signature but not both, I couldn't count it, they would have been over 70%. But they easily met the over 50%. So there's a resolution to schedule a public hearing as the next step in the special assessment process.
Thanks, Tom.
Anybody that's in sales needs to look up Vicky Tucker's phone number and give her a call. That is just astounding numbers.
Is she an attorney?
I don't think so. No relation that I'm aware of. Not my wife, okay? We're clear, it was not my wife.
Well, 70% is certainly a
That's
tough threshold to
Yeah.
meet when it comes to the cost of repaving roads these days, so.
Especially when you know you don't need 70.
Right.
Yeah, most people would have stopped when they got to about 55.
Right.
Any other questions from the board? All right, hearing none, resolution number 2021-37. Clerk Crew, will you please present the resolution?
Resolution number 2021-37 tentatively declares the township's intent to repave Golden Shore Drive, Golden Circle, and Golden Court. Tentatively designates the special assessment district as the Golden Shore Street Improvement Special Assessment District, which includes all property fronting Golden Shore Drive, Golden Circle, and Golden Court. Schedules a public hearing for November 15th, 2021 Township Board meeting. Directs the clerk to publish and mail the hearing notice in accordance with statute. Repeals any conflicting resolutions. I'll move the resolution.
Thanks, Bob.
I'll support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Lorraine,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Contract,
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
resolution passes.
Thanks, Bob. Next business in order is board comment. Is there anyone on the board that has additional comments or concerns? All right. Next business in order is public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. I'll now open up the meeting for public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the board this evening? Nothing? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to Zoom. Is there anyone attending tonight via Zoom that would like to address the board?
I don't think there's anyone there.
There's one, yeah.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there one?
Yep. Mr.
I thought there was just, oh, yeah. If there's no one attending via Zoom or here tonight that would like to address the board, I would say it is now 8:48. If there's nothing else, I say good night, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not my alarm, but, yeah, you know, all right, we want to chat tonight.